The Palestinians and their accomplices in mass murder, and their so-called progressive supporters in the West, claim that Israel, in its military response to the unprovoked butchery of 1,400 of its citizens, has killed almost 4,000 Gazan children, and accuse Israel of war crimes. I have some questions about this, 10 of them to be precise. Question number 1. When hundreds of innocent Jewish children were murdered and kidnapped last month, did the Palestinians, their state sponsors, or any of their progressive supporters anywhere in the world condemn this unprecedented atrocity or express sympathy with the victims and their destroyed families? Or is it only horrible when Palestinian children die, but when Jewish children are deliberately murdered, that's okay? Question number 2. Are there any videos of Israeli Jews celebrating the death of Palestinian children? Because YouTube is chock full to the brim of videos of Palestinians celebrating the slaughter of Jewish children. Question number 3. The Israeli army has repeatedly urged the civilian population of Gaza to move south, sending millions of text messages to Gazan cell phones to that effect, and opening humanitarian corridors for the purpose, so that Palestinian civilians do not get caught in the crossfire. Did the Gazan army of Hamas provide a similar service for Israeli civilians when they came to murder hundreds of them on October 7th? Question number 4. Israel has produced pictures, names, birth certificates, death certificates, and autopsy reports for all of the over 1,400 of its deliberately murdered citizens. Can or will the Palestinians ever produce similar documentation for even half of the casualties that they have clearly fabricated? A quarter? An eighth? We shall demand such evidence from these murdering liars after we are finished saving the world from their baby-burning army of satanic terrorists. We know for a fact that they will not be able to produce it. Question number 5. We have watched the Arabic news stations for hours, days, and weeks. Here they report the bombing of a hospital, there of a residential district, elsewhere of a school. They invariably call it a massacre, a majzara, and claim dozens, even hundreds of dead. But everybody who watches the coverage wonders out loud, or at least under their breath, why so few actual dead bodies are shown. Lots of rubble, unquestionably, but relatively few, if any, bodies. Now, I'm sure you don't believe me, so judge for yourself. Type in phrases like massacre in Gaza or hundreds dead in Israeli bombing raid in Gaza or something similar into Google and watch the Arab channels and the Palestinian propaganda videos themselves and count how many dead people you see. Now, why is this? Because the Palestinians and their supporters never, ever stop lying. Never stop inflating or just making up numbers. As they lied last month about the hospital bombing and their lie was exposed for the entire world to see, so they have been lying unabashedly ever since. Now, have Palestinian civilians been killed, including children? Unquestionably. But the Palestinians came in and murdered hundreds of Israeli Jewish civilians and children first. And unlike us, they did so on purpose. Now, you say you are against the killing of civilians and children, right? So, of course, you believe that the 3,000 Hamas terrorists who killed hundreds of innocent Israeli civilians and children are evil and must be eliminated, right? But alas, these terrorists simply refuse to present themselves front and center for execution. Can you imagine? So in order to punish them and make sure that they do not live to massacre hundreds of innocent Jews again, which they and their leaders have repeatedly and emphatically declared that they will do, we have to go in and get them. And this inevitably involves, despite our most strenuous efforts to the contrary, the death of civilians. So what do you think? Maybe in that case, Israel should do nothing at all in the wake of the unprovoked slaughter of 1,400 of its citizens. Maybe we should turn the other cheek, forgive Hamas for what it did, and just, suck it up and allow them to do it again and again and again. Question number 6. The Israeli Defense Forces could kidnap hundreds, even thousands of Palestinian children and hold them hostage, even threaten their lives in order to get our own dear, brutalized children back. Why don't we do that? Hint, we are too moral. And everyone knows it wouldn't work anyway because Hamas doesn't give a damn about Palestinian kids. Question number 7. What should America do if the Mexican army comes charging into Texas and machine guns, machetes, dismembers, disembowels, decapitates, explodes, gang rapes, and burns alive 40,000 men, women, grandparents, and children? That is the proportionate equivalent of what happened to Israel last month, and kidnaps and holds hostage thousands more American citizens while simultaneously launching an incessant barrage of deadly rockets and missiles at civilian centers in Austin, Houston, and Dallas. What should America do in such a case? That is what we in Israel are facing today. Question number 8. Palestinian politicians, as well as pro-Palestinian pundits and activists in the West, constantly claim with one voice that Israel will never succeed in its declared goal of eliminating Hamas because, and I quote, Hamas is an integral and indivisible part of the fabric of Palestinian society. Juz'un la yatajaz'a min nasij al-mujtama' al-Falastini. That Hamas is Palestine and Palestine is Hamas. So wait, if Palestinian society is part and parcel of Hamas, doesn't that mean that they are part and parcel of the unprovoked mass murder of 1,400 innocent human beings, of the torture unto death of literally hundreds of old people, of the slaughter of entire families in their homes, of the rape and immolation of countless young girls, and of the theft of children from their parents en masse? And if the Palestinians as a people are indeed part and parcel of all that, then, well, don't they pretty much deserve whatever they get and then some? But if the Palestinians are not of a piece with Hamas, if Palestinian society is not responsible for the unprecedentedly horrific crimes committed by Hamas, because Hamas is a dictatorial regime that has the Palestinian populace in a stranglehold, then shouldn't all of these progressive intellectuals in the West be calling for the defeat of Hamas and the liberation of Palestinian society from this singularly sadistic and satanic dictatorial organization? What do you think? Which is it? Question number 9. We Israelis have a long-standing disagreement with the Palestinians. They claim we stole their land. We claim they stole our land. When civilized people have a disagreement, they talk about it, discuss it, perhaps even try to solve it via mutual compromise. But there is no word in Arabic for compromise. And the Palestinians have been expressing their disagreement with us for over a century by means of mass murder, blowing up our buses, hijacking our airplanes, machine gunning our elderly at Passover seders, killing our Olympic athletes, executing toddlers in our kindergartens, stabbing entire families to death in their beds, detonating bombs next to pregnant Jewish women on Jerusalem's streets. And now this. 3,000 heavily armed Palestinian terrorists from Gaza infiltrate southern Israel and go on a region-wide Jew hunt, slaughtering hundreds of young people at a dance party, butchering babies, tying fathers and mothers to their children and burning them alive together, deeds that the devil himself could not have conceived or carried out. Israel has never once initiated hostilities with the Palestinians. but only ever reacted to their incomparable atrocities committed against our citizens. So here's my question. If you have a long-standing disagreement with your neighbor, who happens to be a mob boss, and once a week he breaks into your house and shoots one of your kids to death, how long is it going to be before you decide to do whatever it takes to eliminate him utterly, including firebombing his abode? Question number 10, my final question. I have 3 friends. One of them is dead. One will survive, and the third will commit suicide. My first friend is lucky to be dead because Hamas terrorists murdered his wife and all of his children in his house. The entire family was buried together. My second friend spent the Sabbath and Simchat Torah holiday in a fallout shelter for 31 hours with his 2 young children, trying desperately all that time to convince them that their mother, who was lying next to them throughout, was not getting up because she was very tired and not because she had a bullet in her forehead. If those kids had known she was dead, they might have raised a hue and cry, and the murdering Palestinian beasts who were constantly passing by outside and yelling and whooping in Arabic would have found them out and slaughtered them all, as they did to so many other Jewish families. We buried his wife at the end of that week. My third friend had an only daughter, whom he loved more than life, the sweetest, kindest girl you would ever want to meet, who loved and cared about all that lived and breathed. She was at that dance party in the South. She ran like her hundreds of fellow dancers, but like so many of them, she was caught. The Palestinian men who caught her raped her repeatedly and brutally. She was found with her skirt hiked up and her private parts ripped to shreds. And since that was not enough for these Palestinian monsters, they then proceeded to light this girl on fire and burn her to death. I held my friend as he embraced her charred corpse and screamed and screamed and screamed without cease. His pain is unbearable. He cannot stop thinking about how his sweet, beautiful, beloved daughter's life was ended by means of the most horrible torture known to humankind, and about how she called out his name as she burned, begging him to come save her. He will unquestionably kill himself. And my question to you, all of you enlightened students at the Western universities, all you smooth-talking intellectuals and sophisticated professors at my alma mater, Columbia, you have nothing to say about all of this. You rally and demonstrate and chant and protest in support of this, in support of these inhuman monsters. Have your minds and hearts really been that tightly sealed off by your unthinking, unfeeling, cult-like ideology? Do you really want to have a share in evil of this magnitude? And do you really think that your support for such murderous monsters, for those who are gearing up to carry out a second Holocaust, do you really think that there will be no hell to pay for your enabling and facilitating of such horrors? Let me answer that one. There will be. If you continue to support Hamas, one of 2 things will happen. Either we, the decent people of this world, will make sure you pay the price for your malicious hatred masquerading as morality, or Hamas and its counterparts worldwide, whom you support, will catch up with you. And then you will really pay. Then you will reap the unspeakable evil that you have sown. To the university students, I say, you're still young. Your minds and hearts are still open. It's not too late for you to make a change. Flexibility, change, and open-mindedness are what being young is all about. It's not too late for you to come over to the side of good and right and morality and decency. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel is a civilized country surrounded on all sides by vicious, murdering barbarians. Even against these horrific odds, and even while we fight off those who threaten and act repeatedly to annihilate us, we strive with all our might to maintain our humanity. So do the right thing, my friends. Stand with Israel.